Today we play golf.
Let me show you how we do it in the pros.
Welcome to Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
I never miss with the 7-iron.
A conversation with some of the most interesting innovators and entrepreneurs behind the biggest names in golf.
My friends with the golf clubs. I lived on the golf course. I lived on the driving range.
From pro talk.
You should learn something from each and every single round you play.
To fun from on and off the green.
Why would you play golf if you don't play it for money?
Just let me put the ball in the hole.
This is Behind the Golf Brand Podcast with Paul Liberatore.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Behind the Golf Brand Podcast. This week I have my old friend Bob Winskowicz from Sqairz Golf Shoes. A lot of you guys already know what Sqairz is. You've seen the commercials. You've seen them used on the tour. You've seen all the big greats use them. And today I have the brains behind the brand, and I'm super excited on the show because we've been talking about this for at least 2 years. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
Paul, as always, good to talk to you. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Where are you located?
We're actually located in New Hampshire. We're about 45 minutes outside of Boston and right over the line in New Hampshire, Windham, New Hampshire.
Now, are you from that area?
I am. I grew up about 30 miles away, a small town called Georgetown, Massachusetts. So I'm a Boston boy at heart, and or as we say, hot. Yeah, so it's we moved up here about 8 years ago from Massachusetts and love it up here in New Hampshire. But for the last 2 weeks, it seemed like been rain for 2 weeks, and finally we're getting some good weather, and I think the golf courses are going to be rocking this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Finally, right? Now golf season's in the – I mean, it takes, forever, it feels like, doesn't it?
It does, particularly in the Northeast. We go April to November, and it just seems like you have quite a bit of rain in April and May, and then November gets a little cool. But we try to get out as much as we can and make the most of it.
So, are you a golf pro?
Oh no. I'm a 10 handicap. I'm a 10 to 11 handicap. It's interesting. I tell people that, I work a lot, and I love what I do, and which presents a challenge to get out on the golf course. I usually play Friday late afternoon and Saturdays. I don't play on Sundays, so I get in a couple rounds a week, and if there's a tournament, then that changes things up. But yeah, I think I think my average a year is about 25 rounds. I mean, I really don't play that much golf.
Just because you're so busy with running a company?
It is.
Or just with life?
It is. It's a combination, but 90% of it is the work. There's myself and my wife, and we've got a 4-legged son, and so we don't have any kids. So I can't claim the kids. It's just that I love what I do, and I spend a lot of time doing it.
I think people have a misconceived notion that if you work in the golf industry, you play golf all the time.
It's true. I met, we've known each other for a while, and I mentioned to you that I used to work for Arnold Palmer. I ran Arnold's golf equipment company for a little over 3 years. And at the time, we were very prominent, and certainly with Arnold's name, there was probably a handful of courses out there in the U.S. that I couldn't play. We could make a call to the head pro, and say, hey, I'm the Senior VP of Sales and Marketing for Arnold Palmer, and a lot of these guys will do that. We'll send them a set of irons or a driver, or, at the time we had hot seat golf bags. And so we could send them golf bags as a thank you. But I never really did that. I never really took advantage of that because it was, I tell people jokingly, I say, it's like working in a chocolate factory all day long. The last thing you want to do is go home and eat chocolate, So
exactly.
But I love golf. And
it's like you don't have time, right? I mean, it's like 5 hours. So it's like I play a lot, I guess you could say, but if I'm like out trying on equipment or testing it out or getting a lesson, like that's not really playing. That's just like filming it and trying to get it right. And like, I'm not there to like just focus on my game. I'm more focusing on whatever I'm checking out that day,
And I'm kind of the same way. It's interesting. I would say most of the rounds I do is I'll take a new model of shoe and go out and play. I do go hit balls. I go to the range and hit balls with the shoes and get a good feel for them, check some stuff out. It's interesting you say it that way because I am very mindful when I play of what my feet feel like, how the shoes perform. So it's always it seems to me now that I think back, my head is always in a different place than focused on the golf.
Yeah, it's because you're like already kind of focusing on the, what you're working on, I guess is a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
And what, trying to get better, enjoying the game. Growing up, then how'd you get into golf?
Well, quite an interesting story. As a young kid, I caddied. My
Really?
father was a big golfer, loved the game of golf. And so at a very young age, I got out on the course as a caddy, and I'd caddy for my father. And then on the weekends, I would stay at the course and caddy even some more. Really, that's what got me into the game of golf, was caddying.
So was this in Massachusetts?
Yeah. It was a small public course called Far Corners Golf Course. And I would get up there early in the morning. My father would get up there early, and we'd get done maybe about 11 or 12. And I would stand around, and a guy who was going out at 12 and 1 would say, "Hey, I need a caddy." And I think it was for $5. I used to carry the bag for 18 holes.
There's a lot of money back then, though.
It was, I remember those days. And
as a kid, too, you're like, I'm rich.
Yeah, it was, and I had some guys that I'd always caddy for, and it was always fun, and they'd give me a little extra, but it was something that introduced me to the game, particularly the competitive side of the game. And then obviously from there, I started to play. I was taught primarily through my father and just watching the game and being up close and personal caddying. So, yeah, that was some time ago.
So you grew up playing golf. Then were you on the golf team or anything like that, or you just played for fun?
Yeah, when I went to college, I went to a small school up in Maine called Husson. It was called Husson College at the time. Now it's Husson University. I played Husson University. I played on the golf team, and up there in Maine, it was a very limited season. I think we played for about a month and a half, 2 months. Because of the school.
It's so far north.
Yeah, in the snow on the ground. But yeah, and like I said, I was always right around a 9 to a 12 handicap in that. Not always, but just generally stayed in that. I was not a great golfer. I always had the distance. I was a long driver of the ball, and I always hit the ball high and long. Short game is terrible. Putting is okay, but I could stripe an iron and a driver. I love playing the game. I love playing in events with a partner. If I'm paired up with somebody who's a 3 or 4 handicap, I'll go up and have a couple of bad holes and they'll be right there. So I really enjoy those type of events.
All right. So you graduated from college, and then what did you do? Did you go get a job at Arnold Palmer?
No, I went into the consumer goods industry, and for a number of years, I worked for this company called Alberto Culver. At the time, a good friend of mine, I developed a friendship with a gentleman who was a vice president there, and he left and went to work for McGregor Golf. And I got a call.
What did that company do? The one, the Alberto one.
They were a consumer goods company. They had a whole variety of different businesses. They had VO5 shampoo and all of that.
Oh, wow.
Plus
Yeah.
So I used to sell food, drug, and mass merchandise. I was a sales guy. And but they had a bunch of other household products and food products. But this gentleman, John McNulty, called me one day and said, "Look, I'd like you to come work for me at McGregor Golf." And this was early January. And I was a little unsure at the time. And so he said, "Look, I'm going to send you a ticket. I'd like you to come to the PGA show." And I walked into the PGA show, and I walked into that room and I said, "I don't care what he pays me. I'm going to work for that company." And I went to work for McGregor Golf. That was my first foray into the golf business.
What year was that?
Oh boy, I think that was 1995. Yeah,
okay.
My memory is correct. 95, 96, and then I was there for
at McGregor.
McGregor for four or 5 years maybe, and then I got a call one day.
What were you doing at McGregor?
I was running the eastern half of the United States.
Sales?
Yep. I managed, I think at the time, maybe about 15 to 20 independent reps. And then I would call on all of the major headquarters, like Nevada Bob's of the world. At the time, there was Summit and Springs down in Pennsylvania. But I would call on all the major off-course retailers. And at that time, really, people were just starting to get into the sporting goods world, selling into sporting goods. For the most part, I handled the off-course and I managed on-course rep group.
So the independent rep groups that would go out to all the pro shops and
Correct.
try to get the sales there, and then all the brick and mortar, you were in charge of the big brick and mortar.
Yes, yeah. And at the time, as you can imagine back then,
that's a lot back then because there was no internet. I mean, that was the heyday of internet. So like that was it. There was brick and mortar and there was pro shop, and that's it. There was no online.
That was
sales,
it. And the brick and mortar was predominantly like Pro Golf Discount. It was Nevada Bob's, things like Somerton Springs. There was Golfers Warehouse up in Connecticut, down in Connecticut. And, there were these chains of off course, and that was it. There was no real at the time, and off course was becoming a big play. And then, eventually the Sports Authority and those type of people came to life, and we would sell them. But my focus was on off course and the independent groups, which were the calling on the pro shops.
So then, okay, so you did that for 3 years. I mean, it seems like you kept on like honing your skill. Now it's like, first you're doing like regular consumer goods, then you go to McGregor and you start learning the golf industry, which is completely different than consumer goods. And then what happens?
So I got a call one day from a recruiter. Said, look, we've got a job as the senior VP of sales and marketing for Arnold Palmer. Would you be interested in talking? I said, absolutely. Certainly the name Arnold Palmer attracted me to the job, but the elevated position was also, and salary was also very attractive. So I I interviewed. Eventually they flew me into Atlanta airport. I had an interview in Atlanta. Loved everything I heard.
Was that where they're at?
No, they're based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. But it was kind of a central meeting place. So we met there and had a great talk with the CEO at the time. And he said, look, I'm looking for a number 2 guy to come in, run sales marketing. And we've got 2 type of brands. We've got the on-course brand, and then we've got kind of the off-course retail brand. And we're looking for somebody with that retail experience, but that rep management. And it was a good fit for both of us, I think, at the time. I took the job and I moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee from Massachusetts. And
whoa.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's such a great town. I haven't been back in a long time, but I want to, it's funny. My first week there, I'm staying in a hotel because I'm looking for an apartment. So I take my laundry down and my dry cleaning to a place, and I'm talking to this woman at the dry cleaning place, and she detects the accent and says, you're not from around here, are you? And I said, no, I just moved here. And she said, well, listen, here's my phone number. I'd like you to come over, meet the family and have dinner with us one night. And
what?
And yeah. And being from Boston, we're kind of on our guard a little. And, I'm like, are you serious? And she said, oh, would love to have you come over and have dinner. And about 2 weeks later, I was looking at a gym. I'm touring around. And as I'm touring around, I'm talking to the guy who's giving me a tour of the gym. And I explained, I'm from Massachusetts, this and this, I've been down here for two and a half weeks. And he said, listen, if you ever want, to get to know some people, have you come over, you can come to our church with us, that type of thing. And that was just the genuine nature of the people down there, is that, I had within 3 weeks, I had 2 people invite me over to their house. It was funny. We had this cleaning lady that would clean the office, and twice a week, she'd bring me in a casserole dish. I'd be sitting there at 6 o'clock. They'd come in around 6 o'clock to clean the office, and she'd bring me in a casserole dish of dinner. It was really just the people and the mindset down there. It just brings back a lot of great memories.
Just good people.
Yeah, genuinely good people. And, it's part of the Bible Belt, and it really just the people down there were very special, very, very special.
So then how long were you at Arnold Palmer?
A little over 3 years. Yeah, a little over 3 years. And then I left and I started a company, a technology company with a friend of mine. And we had that for about 17 years. And then I sold out.
What was that? It was tech or golf tech?
It's interesting. I had this idea after reading an article back, I think it was 1996, and it said something like water everywhere, and talked about golf balls and used golf balls and how they were immersed in water. And after a while they were, they would deteriorate somewhat, but they talked about how big the used golf ball market was versus the new market. So I came up with an idea to deploy within the cover stock material of a golf ball a color change chemistry, and then also a water activated ink. So when the ball was submerged in water for a week, it started losing distance. The water would uptake, and at the time it was a Sirlin golf ball, so those were very hydrophilic, which means water can pass through quickly. And so it would uptake water and then start dissolving the fillers in the core of the golf ball, and it would reduce the coefficient of restitution, which is the responsive nature of the golf ball. So technically it was losing distance, and you would never know. You would buy these used golf balls and you could be buying these lemons and you would never know. And so we developed this technology and got it to a prototype that once it was submerged in water, after 3 days, the name would dissolve off, Titleist or whatever it was. And then 4 days later, it would change color to let you know that it was a bad golf ball.
What the hell? Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So who bought it?
Actually, nobody. We presented. I had a deal with Spalding, a gentleman by the name of Eddie Bender was the EVP over there, and we worked with them for quite some time. And we had a contract in our hand, and the lawyers were going back and forth. And then they were sold to Callaway. It shelved it, and Titleist said, "Look, we're not going to move unless anybody else moves." And the rest of the ball industry just kind of said, "Hey, when Titleist and Spalding move, we'll move," because at the time they owned the largest market share. And so it just dragged. But one of the things we did is we took that technology, that color change chemistry, and we took it to other areas. We took it to the government, the military. We took it and we came up with a permanent but reversible tattoo ink that, once you get the tattoo, if you ever want it removed, you hit it with a certain laser frequency and it shuts the color off. So it goes from color to colorless. So you never know it was there. It never burns the skin, anything. So we came up with a lot of this technology that morphed out of the golf mindset. And so I eventually sold my stake in the company to my partner and moved on.
Dude, you're smart. That's crazy. That's insanity. Like, I had no idea. So the military would use it. Anybody, it was almost an ink that could disappear, right? Essentially.
On the tattoo, it could disappear, but the color change chemistries, you can change color based upon a whole variety of stimuli, and it could be light. So when light hits something, or the lack of light hit, the presence of light or the lack of light can make color look a certain way. So we were painting objects for the military that were black in one situation, and as they came up in the water, so to speak, it would change color to blend in with the surroundings. So it was a pretty interesting chemistry that could.
But was it a one-way chemistry? So would it be able to go back or no? As soon as
out? Oh yeah. Depending on the light source, how much availability of light could change. We could also change it based upon a whole variety of triggers. There's a whole variety. It could be stress. It could be, weight. It could be, you name it. It could be a whole variety of things. So we changed color.
Was your partner like a chemist?
No, you know what is interesting is we conceived a lot of these ideas and concepts based upon the color change of the golf ball, but we hired a big company called Patel Memorial Institute to do the initial construction of the chemistry, and then we hired the former chief technology officer from Polaroid to come over, and we created a whole team, and we came up with a lot of chemistry.
Who would have thought, right? I mean, you go from that is. Wow.
Yeah.
So when did you sell that to your partner? A little couple years ago when you starting Sqairz?
That probably was about 15. No, that's not true. Maybe about 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. And then I got hired as a consultant to come in and run a medical device company for 2 or 3 years and left that. But I had formulated the idea of the golf shoe back in 2000 and probably 2013. I think that's when I filed the patents. I had the concept for the golf shoe back then.
All right, so let's talk about Sqairz. How did you come up with the idea for Sqairz golf shoes?
Yeah, I watched back in 2009 the popularity of these lightweight sneaker-like shoes like Echo kind of burst onto the scene in 2009. And I had previously done, while I was in the golf industry, did a fair amount of research on ground force and things of that nature, and always had an appetite for learning about the science behind the golf swing. When I saw these shoes come out, these lightweight sneaker-like shoes, I just thought to myself that's just it's counterintuitive to the science of the golf swing. That if you can take a golf shoe and hold it by the heel and the toe and twist it, throw it away, it cannot facilitate the golf swing. And I can go deep with you on this, that, as you're on the course, and a golf course doesn't really have any even surface. Everything is uneven. So if you're in a lightweight sneaker-like shoe and you're in a side hill, downhill line, it doesn't have to be a very deep curve. But what happens is your body senses that, and your feet literally shift in those shoes because they've got a lot of flexibility to them in the materials. And because of that, your brain says, uh-oh. It's like standing on the side of a cliff looking down. Your brain says something's wrong, something's going on here, and you grab the ground with your toes. And I watched a lot of these. I watched the popularity of these shoes just keep growing and growing. I think the original mindset was that you can't have comfort in spikes. They were like complete up. You can't have it together. So I found that a lot of the growth in golf footwear was in these spikeless shoes. They first started out as a street shoe. That's what they called them, the Echo Street. And the whole mindset was, well, you can wear them on the golf course, at the grill room, in the supermarket, so on and so forth. I always say, if you can wear a golf shoe that many places, you're wearing the wrong kind of golf shoe, because a golf shoe should be designed for the golf course. Certainly you can develop comfort and all this stuff that you could wear it out there, but it's designed for the course. So I watched the emergence of the spikeless, and I couldn't believe everybody jumped in. Well, they jumped in for a lot of reasons. Is that, kind of Echo proved the market, and then FootJoy and everybody else jumps in because you can make that shoe over in China for about $20 and sell it for $200. So, the profit margins there are really good. But then they got away from spikes. And this is the one thing that I tell anybody who'll listen to me in golf footwear. If you are not wearing a spiked golf shoe, a removable cleat golf shoe, you are compromising your golf swing, and you are creating so many inefficiencies in the golf swing. And it's been tested out. We've tested it out. And I'll give you just an example, is that even there's a study out there called the Pinehurst study, which was done by Pride Sports. And they tested golfers. And if you are, they found that it's about 6 yards of distance on a driver and up to about 10 yards on an iron difference between a spikeless and a removable cleat. The other thing I would challenge everybody out there is that the pros today, one of the common phrases today is use the ground. Use the ground. And now, how do you use the ground? Where are the pros going to get more distance from? It's not the equipment today. It's not the club. It's not the shaft. That's pretty much been maxed out, and the USGA has been all over them for that. So it's not the ball. The ball's been highly regulated for so many years. It's not the ball. It's their use of the ground. And with the software and the technology today, they can identify their inefficiencies and fix them, and those result in better accuracy and better distance. So with that said, 82% of all tour players wear a removable cleat on their shoe. 82%. Not spikeless, but a removable cleat. All the majors last year were won by a person wearing a removable cleat. So what is it the tour pros know that the amateur doesn't, which is ground force? It is your connection to the ground that is paramount in creating that energy exchange, which ultimately is the reason for distance. Now, I tell people this all the time, and it finally starts to resonate with them that, look, in the golf swing, the only way to create distance is your interaction with the ground. So does a golf club create swing speed? No, it does not create swing speed. Does the golf ball create swing speed? Distance comes from swing speed. The only piece of equipment that you wear that helps you generate swing speed is your golf shoe, your connection to the ground. So think of the golf club as you put the pressure into the ground, and we measure that by Newton. So you put the pressure into the ground, and every action has a reaction. So as you take the club back, you take your weight, you transfer it to your trail side, and then it's how fast you can move it from your trail side to the lead side creates that distance. So it's the energy you create and then how you use it. Those are the two key things in creating distance. Now you create that energy, and think of the club as like a conduit. It's like the lightning rod. You transfer that energy down through the club, and that energy is delivered to the golf ball. So the golf ball just sits there and absorbs the energy. The club transfers the energy. So everybody out there listening to this is thinking that the driver is the most important thing, and I can't wait to get the new driver. Well, I'm going to give you a very interesting statistic. Arcos, and for those people who don't know what Arcos is, they have this little piece of equipment that goes on the top of your club and the butt end of your club. It can measure swing speed, can measure all this stuff. And over 20 million, they've done over 600 million recordings of shots, and they did 20 million of drivers over the last 5 years. And if I was to ask you and everybody out there, in the last 5 years, how much has driver distance increased? And you think about it, and I can embarrass everybody here by saying, you think about all the latest and greatest shaft technology, all the lessons and all the new technology that the big driver companies are pushing out there. The answer to the question is plus 0.5 yards in 5 years. So here are the numbers.
Half a yard.
Half a yard. In 2018, the driving distance, the average driving distance for an amateur was 226.4 yards.
All right, good. That means that I'm like where I'm supposed to be. Phew.
Right.
Okay,
And
cool.
today in 2000, well, this is 2022. In 2022, it is 225.9. So it's minus, I meant minus 5 yards. So minus 5 yards.
We're hitting not as far as we used to.
That's it. So is that?
But why do you think that is, though? Do you think that's because? Okay, let me ask this question. Do you think it's because of the tech, or do you think it's because in the last 3 years we've had like a billion new golfers come up that don't have a damn clue and that are new? And
so every year, when you think about people entering the game and leaving the game, it pretty much just washes out. And then there's other things about altitude and all this. And in the data from Arcos, they contemplate the altitude stuff and all that. But if you just generally speaking say that people that have entered the game and exited the game, that it's pretty static, even though it's gone up and down over the last 5 years. Say that's a given. I contend that it's your shoes. The spikeless shoes. And
really? Why?
I do. Why. Because if you look at the tour pros, the average driving distance has gone up every year except for 1 year since 2012 to 2022. Why has their driving distance gone up since 2012 every year except for 1 year? And 82% of the players wear spike shoes. In the amateur market, 60% of the players wear a spikeless golf shoe. So 60% of amateurs wear a spikeless, and 18% in the tour wear them. All right. So my point is, why has the PGA Tour increased in distance? And again, you come up with a bunch of different reasons. But I will tell you that in the amateur market, you would think in the last 5 years, with all of the new metal woods that are out there, all of the shaft technology, the golf lessons, all of this stuff would translate into an increase in distance over the years. And in fact, we've gone back a half a yard in the last 5 years.
Do you think so? You think it's the shoes, right? Like they're not getting the same kind of
ground connection. Yep.
Connection with the shoe.
Now
and they're slipping, sliding, and they're losing their power.
Correct. And I would argue that this has a lot to do with it. And so a lot of people out there listening may say, wait a minute, that is just a big claim. But if you think about where does distance really come from? Like I said, it's not the club, it's not the ball. You create the energy. And it's one thing to create the energy. It's another thing to use it. All right. So when you put that pressure and you exert that pressure on the ground, somebody like a Rory or a Tiger or a Justin Thomas, if you watch them when they swing, it looks like they're sitting down as they're bringing the club down. It looks like they're sitting. What they're doing is they're forcing more energy into the ground. So they're generating about 1.3, 1.4 times their body weight. So if they're 200 pounds, they're naturally exerting 200 pounds of pressure on the ground. It's giving you back 200 pounds, but they're forcing 1.3. So with that said, you watch them as they get ready to hit the ball, they're up on their toes. It's because the energy is lifting them up. So they create an awful lot of it. And then it's a matter of how do you use that? How do you use it? And the biggest difference between what you create and what you use is postural control. How well you control your body throughout that motion. That is the critical element. And that's what the pros are so darn good at, is that consistently controlling their body. Now, the other thing I mentioned earlier was how fast you can move the pressure from the trail to the lead side. And think of snapping a towel. If you're going to take a towel and snap somebody in a rear end with a towel, you move it out and you stop, and then it breaks the sound barrier. You hear this big noise, it breaks the sound barrier. Well, it's because you break, you stop it, and that's what's happening in the golf swing. You get it over to the right side of your right-handed golfer, to your trail side, and then you move it quickly, and then you break. You have two breaks in the swing. You get it back, you break, and you come forward, and right before you hit the ball, you break again. And that's why your hands are moving at, say, 18 miles an hour, and the club is moving at 120 miles an hour or plus. If you don't think the shoes have any impact on that, or can have an impact, good or bad, it's completely wrong. It does, and we've tested this. And this is what we have done. We have tested pretty much every golf shoe out there, whether it's that lightweight sneaker-like shoe, or it's a structured performance shoe like a Sqairz, an Adidas 360, or a FootJoy Pro SL. And we can test those, and we can see marked differences between balance and stability. And that's why we designed our shoe, is that our toes sit naturally in the shoe with the less rounded toe shape. It's more squared off, not a completely squared off. It's got a 70 millimeter radius, but your toes sit naturally. We widen the base under the ball of your foot. So now inherently you're going to have better balance, better stability. As I mentioned before, postural control is really balance and stability. And that will dictate where you hit the ball on the face of the club, center face strike, off balance, whatever, because your arms follow your body. And if you are off balance, you're going to have off center face strikes. And that's what golf club companies have tried to do over the years, is to try to mitigate the loss of distance on off center face strikes, that you don't lose too much when you don't hit the sweet spot. So it all begins with balance and stability as a function of your connection to the ground. And that connection to the ground, the balance and stability, has a direct relationship to accuracy and distance. And that's what Sqairz was able to achieve. And that's why we make these claims that we can improve your balance and stability, and that inherently will translate to better accuracy and more distance, and we can measure that. There's a lot of science here, Paul, and everybody in the game has heard about building the swing from the ground up. It's like a commonly used phrase. The newest thing out there is using the ground, and the other one is breaking. Breaking is that you get it back and you break here and then you break here. And the wider base in our shoes help you break better, which means more club head speed. So it's forced with all the regulations and clubs and balls, if people are looking for more distance, you've got to look on how you can use the ground more efficiently. And that will eliminate inefficiencies and, in contrast, produce efficiencies in the golf swing.
You first filed the patent in 2013, right, on Sqairz, correct? That you said earlier?
There were two filed back then, and since then we've got about
more of
eight issued patents. Yep.
So was it an initial patent like a design or a utility?
Correct.
Or what?
Yep. Design patents. The first two or three were design patents. Actually, the first four were design patents, and we filed a utility. We've got a couple of utility patents and 6
on the tech, on how it works, right?
Correct.
The tech behind it, not the way it looks, but more the tech of how it works.
Correct.
In case anybody doesn't know, that's the difference between design and utility. Just one is the way it looks, and one is the way it works. Really, I mean,
technically, yes. Yep.
Basic.
Yep. That's a good way to boil it down. Yeah. And that's interesting too. When you think about the looks of our shoe, when I launched this, people said, it's got a square toe and all of that. And, if you take a look at the shoe, it's a good looking shoe. But, the interesting thing is when you look at what Ely Callaway did with the Big Bertha and what Karsten Solheim did with the irons, and I'm not putting myself in that category at all. When they launched the Big Bertha and they launched the first ping irons, they were both looking for perimeter weighting. They both sought out perimeter weighting in a club. And when they got done, that's the way perimeter weighting looked. They didn't have a mindset of how it should look. So what happened was Callaway comes out with this oversized shovel of a golf club. It was this massive head with no hosel, and they didn't care the way it looked, and it was radically different. No hosel and a massive head size. And ping irons looked like something from Mars, but they didn't care because the clubs performed. It broke the mold of these traditional looks, and they didn't let the looks of the shoe dictate the design. It was the science really dictated the look of the shoe. And that's what we did. All the science told us that you've got to let the toes sit naturally. And even in Phil Knight's book, The Shoe Dog, he mentions you need a wide toe box so the toes can sit naturally, because once you angle your toes in, you start losing range of motion in your feet. And because they can sit naturally, you'll have more comfort and you'll have better balance and better stability. So that's where the science took us. And, we went out there and we took a lot of crap at the beginning, but I tell people, hey, put them on your feet. If you don't like them, send them back. And that's,
oh, really?
Yep.
You were like saying like, oh, they're not whatever. They're square toe. And you're like, yeah, no crap. That's the name of our company. Like that's why it works. Like,
yep. Yeah. And I think too, when people got the shoe, if you go out and market, it's got a square toe, it's got this and that, they're thinking the old place kicker shoe, and it's not. It's got a 70 millimeters. It's just less rounded than most golf shoes. And you think of some of the best selling shoes out there today. You take the Hoka shoe, it's got a lot more room up in the forefoot of the shoe, so people's toes can sit naturally. And, it's all about the ergonomics, the function of the foot, biomechanics, all this stuff that, hey, it's been proven out, not just with us, but other shoes and other companies. So, it is, but we have a patent on it in the golf industry.
So when did Sqairz launch?
We launched about a little over three years ago. Back in January is our third anniversary. Here we are today, and, we've won on tour. We're playing on tour. We got, Nick Faldo. It's a great story that Nick came to us. And
what's the story with that? Tell us the story.
Yeah, it's really pretty interesting. One my phone rings one day, and gentleman on the other end says, "Hey, my name is Jeremy Eisenberg. I'm Sir Nick Faldo's agent, and Sir Nick would like to get a couple pairs of shoes." And I'm like, all right, who is this? I'm thinking a friend of mine's breaking my chops. And he says, look, we do a show called the Faldo Formula. He does product testing, and he does a lot of exercises about balance and stability. So one day he went on Google search and said, balance and stable in golf shoe, and Sqairz came up. Thank God for search engine optimization. So Sqairz comes up, couldn't find him anywhere because we're sold directly online. And he had his agent call me. We sent him some shoes. I got on a Zoom call about a month later. And he was so impressed with the results. He said to me, and he did an interview on this. It's out on the internet, so you can hear it verbatim. And he said, I would have never believed it. I picked up 6 yards of distance, 2.3 miles an hour in my swing speed. And I just felt more stable, instantly felt stable. And that's the beauty of these shoes. When you put them on, you feel it instantly, the difference. And so he says to me, he goes, listen, I love what you're doing. How can I get involved? And he's an equity shareholder in the company now, and a big supporter. And There's rumors out there that he's going to go out and try to play the senior tour this year. So,
cool.
be good to see him back out there. But again,
He's
that's
the
how
man.
it came.
I mean,
and here's a guy there's not too many people I've seen in my lifetime in the game of golf that worked harder than him at his swing. And in fact, halfway through his career, he changed his swing. He had David Ledbetter come in and just completely revamped the swing and went out and started winning. He's got 6 majors and over 40 wins. And, he
green
dedicated.
jacket.
Yep. These 3 of those are green jackets and the other
crazy.
3 are opens. Yeah. Yep.
I think like the next generation of golfers don't understand like who he is. You know what I mean? Like the iconic time when Tiger Woods won, who was it putting Tiger Woods' jacket on? It was him, right? Like, because he'd won the year before. So it's like,
I've never looked at it that way. That's a very good observation because it was really, from one era to the other.
It was. I feel like that moment in time, like really showcased the passing of the torch to the next generation of golf, to professional golfers. Because I mean, they weren't athletes. You know what I mean? They weren't training to be professional golf. I mean, they were good and they practiced, but I mean, they weren't like from that moment on. Playing golfer now, they all look at Tiger Woods, and they train to become like a professional athlete, and then they play golf.
It's so true. It's so true. They got psychological coaches. They got strength.
Oh, yeah, there's none of that crap back then. It's like you're a good golfer. Right. That was it.
They're out drinking, smoking every night. Smoking cigarettes and drinking out there. And we've all seen the videos of these guys. And it's funny when I as I mentioned, I worked for Arnold Palmer for a number of years, and we'd have a board meeting, and I would sit there and the night before we'd have dinner with Arnold, and he'd tell stories, and it just was just. They led a life that did go play golf, to go into the bar, have dinner and a bunch of drinks, and then go to bed, get up and play again. It was a different lifestyle back then. Now today they're on these high nutrition, high protein diets, and they're, it's like you said, they're high performance athletes.
Was he initially on board, or he just saw you guys after about a year or so? And then, you'd already kind of gain a little bit of momentum, or he saw it in the beginning and was like, oh crap. Because I was like, what happened with that? We launched it on the January PGA show, the end of January, and 3.5 years ago. Yeah. And I got a call the end of April. From Jeremy. And I think we signed the deal in May of that year. So who else have you gotten?
Sepp Straka.
Product. Yeah.
Sepp Straka, who finished 7th on the FedEx Cup points last year, won the Honda Classic, had maybe, I think, 8 or 9.
It's a big deal.
It is. I mean, when you think of other companies, other footwear companies out there, you can go through the list and look at it last year, what company won majors, won tournaments out there. And, if it's not FootJoy, it's, it's really, it's not. It's tough to win out there. I mean, FootJoy's got so many people playing. If it's not FootJoy, the rest is kind of spattered around. But, here we are. We got one tour player, and he goes out and wins last year. One PGA Tour player. We've got with John Daly, with Mark Calcavecchia, Fred Funk on the senior tour, and Faldo. And then we've got some great young ladies playing the shoe that were in the Symetra, and so trying to make it to the LPGA Tour now. It's the Epson, called the Epson now. But yeah, so we've got people out there wearing them. So it's won on tour, it's played on tour, it's been validated. The other thing too that I'm very proud of is when you think of, the tour players that are out there, they're certainly not going to wear it or play it if it doesn't work for them. And because
they want to win. Like it's about winning.
Yep.
This is the advantage to win, not I look cool.
Exactly right. But, and to that point, there's a lot of people throwing, money at the top 10 or the top 5 guys out there, tons of money. And, but it's interesting when I look at the industry, these instructors, a lot of these high profile instructors like Jim McLean, Rick Smith, Todd Kolb, you've got Mark Immelman, Bobby Clampett, Jake Thurm, Taylor Crosby, some of the top instructors out there. All of those 7 people I just named all wear and endorse Sqairz. Mark Immelman, you've got Bobby Clampett, Jim McLean, Rick Smith. Now, these are the hardest guys to break through. If you think about the pro, certainly the Tour pro, he's not going to play if it doesn't work for him, no matter how much money you pay him. But again, what you pay him and, has a direct correlation whether they're going to wear it. But again, ultimately, it's going to work. But these instructors, they get no skin in the game, none. We're not paying them any money.
They're based off the reputation. That's all they.
That's it.
That's it.
And their objective is to help people play. They're measured by how well they help people out to play better golf. So when I've got some of the top elite instrucors in the world endorsing and wearing that shoe, that says a lot, because these are the guys that understand ground force, swing analysis, swing dynamics, and they wouldn't wear it, endorse it, unless they truly bought into all the science and the technology that we deploy in our shoes.
I mean, what's on the horizon for this year with Sqairz?
Well, we just launched a new shoe called Speed Bold. It's a little lighter than our previous models. We've revamped the collar material, the tongue material. It's a one-piece construction. That means less sewing inside, a lot more comfort. We went down that path, and it's been very, very successful. It's a really cool, bold looking shoe. It's got very clean, very classy looking. We object to putting any real color on the forefoot of the shoe. We don't want that to pull away from the eye about focusing on the ball and hitting the shot. So it's a very clean, high performance shoe. We launched some new mesh styles. Now, when I talk about mesh and I contrast that against the sneaker-like shoes, with our mesh shoe, we figured it out. I swear I'd never come out with a mesh shoe because, again, if you can take a shoe, hold it by the heel and the toe and twist it, throw it away. Don't wear it. And we found a way to put structure into that shoe, and you can't twist that shoe. So we did a more breathable upper. It's water resistant. Our Bold and our Speed models are waterproof, 100% waterproof. But we found a way to do it. We just launched some new ladies models. We're launching very shortly a new pickleball shoe. We have already put in play and have got some major league players playing with our new baseball shoe. We've ventured down this path because in any land-based sport, to play that sport, you need to be balanced relative to the motion, and you've got to be able to control that motion. So that's balance and stability. So no matter what sport you play, if you're a pitcher, if you're a fielder, you've got to be balanced. If you are a golfer or a baseball player, you need that ground connection. Everybody, whether it's pickleball or you get ground connection. The other thing in pickleball that's important is that the age bracket that's playing this is a lot older, so they need better balance and stability. It's one of the first things to go as you get older is your balance and stability. So with our wide base, toes sitting naturally, wider base here on the ball, under the ball of your foot, it's showing. We're seeing that it's less injuries. Why? Because you're more balanced and stable. You're not rolling your ankles. So again, it's the performance, it's the comfort, and the functionality, and the cool design of the shoe.
So then, how many styles of shoes do you have then?
When it comes to
speed,
golf,
right? You have speed.
We have speed,
and then you have
bold, and
you have bold.
Well, it's called Speed 1, and then we have Bold. It's Speed Bold. Then we have the mesh line of shoes, men's and women's, and then women's we just launched. It's called the Freedom Ultra, and these are really good-looking shoes. I mean, they're on our website. We just launched them for Mother's Day, and we do them in gold and silver and a black and white. And when you see these shoes, they're just really, really good-looking ladies' shoes. We're coming out with the new microfiber ladies' shoes. Ladies need a lot more flexibility in the top of the shoe because they generally have, bunions, or they develop, that knuckles showing up, that hammer. That they've got the hammer toe type of, so you need a little more flexibility up in the top portion of the shoe. So microfiber solves that problem. But we've got that, and we're launching a Speed 2.0 in the fall. So we've got probably 5 or 6 different models in golf. We're working on some really cool new technology. Then we've got baseball. We've got a turf shoe in baseball. We're launching a trainer shoe, and we've got the molded cleat coming out. And then we've got men's and ladies pickleball.
Wow. What's the difference between fire and ice?
That was just fun.
Design, it's design wise.
It is the fire. The fire is really cool. That's one of my favorite designs. It's got the flames on the back and the heel. And back in the Ryder Cup, when you talk about Patty Ice and how icing your player and this and that, and this guy's on fire. And so we wanted to have a little fun with the design, and we did a fire, which has kind of got the ice on the side of the shoe, and then that's on the ice, and then on the fire, it's got the flames, the red and the black. That's really cool too. It's one of my favorite designs.
So, like in terms of like hierarchy, then of shoe, like you have a speed line, right? And there's different styles. Like there's the regular speed, and then you have like the mesh, right? Which you said was new.
Yep.
And then you have like different like subcategories, right? Like you said, like a fire or a pink or ice, but those are more like styles, I guess, of the main line.
Yep.
And then
different colorways. Yep.
Then you have one called Arrow, but are you guys still doing Arrow, or are you phasing Arrow out?
That's been phased out. That was the very first shoe we launched with what we call the Arrow in the 2020, and those have been phased out. And that's the interesting thing is that that was our first launch, was the Arrow in 2020, and we learned a great deal at the time. I said that the structure of the shoe, we wouldn't compromise the structure, and structure has a direct relationship to the weight of the shoe. And when we launched, we heard from people saying, hey, it feels a lot heavier than most shoes. Well, at the time, you had a lot of those lightweight sneaker-like shoes, so there was a huge dichotomy there. But when you look at the bracket of high-performance shoes like a Tour 360, the FootJoy Pro SL, and when you look at those, we were within an ounce or two of those. So, but we always said we're always going to try to take as much weight as we possibly can out of the shoe without affecting or mitigating the performance of the structure of the shoe. And we've been able to do that over the years. So, when we came out with the speed, it was less weight. We came out with the bold, it's less weight, and we're going to keep working on it. It's just one of those things that
you're refining the shoe is what you're doing.
Yep.
The same technology, the same comfort, the same stability, and you're going to try to make it faster or better than what it is each new line you come out with.
Right. And we're always looking at new materials, new designs. We look at the cleats, we look at performance of the cleats, we look at the traction pattern, see if we can improve that. We do a lot of work with pressure mats and how much pressure people can create, how much balance and stability and we also test out other shoes. I mean, I spent a couple of weeks ago, in a PGA Tour stores looking at every shoe there. I was able to weigh the shoes, measure the shoes under the ball of the foot. We do a lot of this stuff. We rip them apart just to see the construction of it, to see if there's any nuances in there we like or we don't like, and try to capitalize on that. But, when we designed this shoe, I said at the time it was the best golf shoe, and still the best golf shoe ever created. And I'll stand by that. We deployed a heel stabilizer that centers the heel and prevents rollover injury. Little things like our laces. Our laces has I love your laces. They've got printed silicone on the top of it, so when you tie it, it stays put. You don't have to retie the shoe, and you pull it tight and you tie it. You don't have to retie it. Little things like we sewed a gusset on each side of the tongue. So you sew the tongue on either side, and a lot of companies weren't doing that. And what happens when it rains and sand gets on the top of your shoe here, it works its way in. Not with our shoe, because it's sewn. So you can literally stand in the water pretty much almost all the way to the top of the shoe and not get wet. Why? Because sew it and it's waterproof. But little things like that, the cleat we chose was one of the best performing cleats, the lace, the gussets, the heel stabilizer, the quality. This material that we used is I think 90% of all soccer shoes are made with this material. And when you think about how they cut back and forth, it adds that structure. It's got the right amount of flexibility. It's a synthetic leather that just gives you some really good structure. So we looked at, and we said, when we started that we want to make the most expensive golf shoe we could relative to the components. because a lot of times to keep costs down, you've got to, settle for second best in the construction of the shoe. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. But we built what we believe to be the best golf shoe ever built.
Well, I mean, I think you guys make a phenomenal shoe. It's awesome. I mean, it works. The technology's there, and that's the thing. It's not like it's built around the tech. It's not built around anything else, right? It's not like you're trying to,
Right. Yep.
you
Yep.
know,
And the
it's not
science
like everybody else. Like, and you're not BSing people either, where you're saying like, oh, you can wear this to work and you can wear this out.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
the shoe is to make you hit the ball farther. And have more control. That's it.
Well said. And I tell people too, on those spikeless shoes, as you leave the golf course and you're walking around and you're wearing those during the day, whatever, you're wearing them out on certain areas. You're wearing it down on certain areas. And based upon, your foot structure, whether you're a varus or valgus, your foot could be wear on the outside, the inside. And most people have that varus valgus deformity. So, I mean, if you pick up your shoes, you wear it in a certain area of your foot. And if you're wearing that golf shoe out other places, then you're wearing it in certain areas. And when you go to play golf, you're off balance,
Control.
And then you're going to replace that with our shoe. All you have to do is on the golf shoe, all you have to do is replace the spike. That's it, So again, to your point.
Yeah, like 10, 15 years ago, you had regular shoes and you had golf shoes. And then everybody turned into this thing where it's like, oh, you have an everyday shoe that you can use at the golf course. Well, then, that's been the big thing for the last 10, 15 years, right?
Yep.
The everyday shoe. But like, you're right. And think about that either. Like, you wear those shoes out, going to the mall or going to the movies or going with your family or going wherever. And then you go play golf with those same shoes, but they've been worn out on the inside from just everyday use, when really it's like, that's just be a golf shoe that should be used for golf. Like,
exactly. Yep. And I jokingly say, if you can wear it to the supermarket, don't wear it. I mean, don't it's not a golf shoe.
I'm gonna wear my Sqairz at the supermarket. Take a picture. I had Bob on my show today. And he told me I should wear Sqairz everywhere I go, and then show it at the supermarket. Show it pick up my kids at school.
It's not that they are so comfortable you will forget to take them off, but you shouldn't. You should wear them on the golf course, and that's it. Wear them on the golf course.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. You guys, Bob and I have known you for a long time, and I'm really glad to be able to share how kind of Sqairz came about. Now, if people want to purchase Sqairz, like, where do they go? Where do they find it?
We're only direct to the consumer on our website, and it's Sqairz, and that's SQAIRZ.com. Sqairz.com. Check us out. We've got a whole variety of shoes. And before we leave, I want to thank you for having me on and what you do. It's, you're only as good as the guy interviewing you. And it's one of these things where, as a small company in the game of golf, to have a forum like this is huge. And what you do to provide us with a forum is greatly appreciated. So thanks for what you do, and thanks for having us here.
Yeah, you guys have to check out Sqairz. Like, like I said, I think I got my first pair of Sqairz about a year and a half ago, and I tried them out, and I was like, what the hell? Because they were just like so stable. And like, one of my problems, my feet were always like rolling in my shoe, right? Because I was using an everyday shoe. So my foot would roll, on the left foot would roll, right? And when I came through my swing, and then with the Sqairz, I was like so stabilized. Like, you're not slipping, you're not sliding, and you have more control over your shot. So it's like the real deal. And the tech's there. I mean, like, that's all they care about, is making you a better player. So definitely check out Sqairz golf shoes. I can't say any more, higher praise than what I've said already. So thanks for being on the show today, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
You're gonna beat me at golf?
Stay connected on and off the show by visiting golfersauthority.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
Golf is always more fun when you win.
Stay out of the beach and see you on the green.